researchers in Turkey now claim they found indisputable evidence that the story of Noah's Ark was not a cautionary tale.
Scientists have finally entered Noah's Ark, located in Turkey, and they found something very thrilling. Years before this, people argued over whether Noah's Ark was only a story or a forgotten memory buried somewhere in the mountains. Then a quiet discovery in Turkey stirred the world and pulled scientists, believers, and curious minds into one shared moment of wonder. Beneath layers of earth, radar scans revealed a long, ship-shaped structure that promised proof. It didn't claim the final answer, but it opened a door no one expected, blending faith, history, and science in a way that felt almost unreal. As researchers dug deeper and debates grew louder, the world watched closely, sensing that this finding might change how humanity sees its oldest stories. Join us as we uncover the discovery of Noah's Ark. Discovering the Ark. Many people had talked for generations about a giant ship from ancient times, but the idea felt more like a story than something anyone expected to see with their own eyes. That changed when a group of modern researchers turned their attention to a strange shape hidden in the mountains of eastern Turkey. This quiet place sat far from busy towns, close to the dry, rough lands around Mount Ararat. From above, the land seemed carved into a long oval shape, almost like the outline of a huge boat frozen in the earth. People in the region had spoken about it for years, but only in recent times did scientists decide to look carefully and test whether this place could hold something extraordinary. The landform was known as the Durupanar site, a long formation stretching more than 500 feet, which some said matched the length described in the ancient story. Although no one could say for certain what it really was, the shape alone made many curious. Instead of ignoring the old tales, a team of researchers decided to use new technology to see what lay under the soil. They carried machines and special cameras for dirt and rock. When the team began the scans, they expected to see natural rock layers. The region was full of mountains, clay, and strange shapes carved by nature. But the pictures that appeared on their devices surprised them. The signals showed long, straight lines that did not look like normal geology. Deep inside the formation were patterns too even, organized and structured to be random. The shapes looked like long hallways running through the center, almost as if the earth was hiding a frame or skeleton of something man-made. The scans also revealed sections that looked like stacked layers, one on top of another, reminding the researchers of a multi-level structure. To the researchers, it felt unusual that such a space could exist naturally in this shape and position. They also found what seemed like separate inner zones, almost like rooms, separated by straight edges. Although the images were blurry and needed more study, they made the team believe they were looking at more than simple rock. Curiosity grew stronger when soil samples from the formation returned with unexpected results. Dirt taken from the inside showed more organic material than the soil outside. This means the inner soil had more traces of once living things, for instance, wood or other organic materials that had slowly decayed. Some samples also showed different levels of certain minerals, like potassium, and the soil's acidity was unlike the surrounding land. The plants growing directly over the shape were also slightly different from the plants around it, suggesting that whatever was under the soil might be changing how the ground behaved even after thousands of years. Researchers also looked at nearby stones shaped like giant flaps, with holes near the top. These stones were scattered across the region, and locals believed they had been there for ages. Some earlier explorers had guessed these stones were used like stabilizers for an enormous ship long ago. Although no one could prove this idea, their presence added to the mystery. Many families in the area had their own stories, passed down from grandparents, about the strange landform and the objects around it. Their tales could not be confirmed, yet they helped paint a picture of how long this site had fascinated the people who lived near it. Years earlier, Explorers who visited the area had also claimed to find pieces that looked like petrified wood, as if wood had turned into stone over time. Some even said there were iron-shaped streaks in the earth that might point to old fasteners or metal materials. These claims were debated heavily, and not all experts accepted them, but they contributed to why the region kept drawing attention from new research teams. The Turkish government recognized the area as a protected location decades ago, calling it a national park linked to the ancient story. This did not confirm the claims, but it showed that the land carried cultural and historical importance. The new scans brought that interest back to life, as they suggested something unusual could be buried beneath the soil. The researchers leading the new project shared their excitement, but were honest about limitations. They explained that the images pointed to something structured, but only future drilling or deeper tests could confirm if the formation ever held a wooden frame or a human-made object. Many people around the world watched closely, hoping the mountain might be hiding a relic from a distant past. Others watched with careful skepticism, reminding everyone that science works slowly and needs repeated proof. As more data came in, the mystery deepened. The shape, the mineral differences, the three-layer interior, the strange inner tunnel, and the possible traces of past organic material all made the site feel like a treasure waiting to be understood. Whether it was truly the remains of an ancient ship or simply a natural wonder shaped by time, the discovery stirred emotions because it connected ordinary people with stories they had heard since childhood. They had scientists like Wyatt to thank for that. Let's find out who he is. The man named Ron. Ron Wyatt was a man full of wonder and passion. He was not a trained archaeologist or a professional geologist. He worked as a nurse anesthetist in Tennessee, but his life changed when he saw a picture in Life magazine of a strange boat-shaped formation in eastern Turkey. That shape haunted him. He believed it might be the remains of Noah's Ark, and so he dedicated many years of his life to visiting the site and promoting his theory. Wyatt's first trips to the Durupanar formation began in the late 1970s. He returned again and again, drawing other believers into his work, including some well-known figures in Christian circles. Over time, he said he had found many kinds of evidence: petrified wooden beams, bits of metal that he claimed were ship brackets or nails, animal droppings turned to rock, and even hairs. He used metal detectors and sometimes claimed to use radar tools to map what he thought might be a grid of metal supports beneath the surface. Wyatt also pointed to huge carved stones in the nearby area, often called anchor stones. He believed these stones were once used to moor a massive ship. Over the years, he and his supporters built up a compelling story. The size of the formation matched what the Bible described. The materials he recovered seemed to align with ancient shipbuilding, and the stones around it seemed related to a large vessel. Wyatt's claims stirred strong disagreement. Many scientists, archaeologists, and geologists rejected his conclusions. They argued that the pet wood he reported was actually volcanic rock, that the metals he detected were natural mineral deposits, and that the strange formation was nothing more than an odd geological shape formed over time. It was not a beached vessel. Critics also noted that the chemical analyses Wyatt cited could be explained without invoking a ship. For instance, the carbon levels in his samples, which he said proved ancient timber, fell within the normal range for soils, according to some experts. Other scientists pointed out that the metal brackets might simply be nodules of iron or manganese created by natural geological processes. Some even raised ethical and methodological issues, arguing Wyatt did not follow typical archaeological processes and lacked academic training. Despite the controversy, Wyatt's work left a strong legacy. His passionate exploration and the stories he told helped spark public interest in the Durupanar site. He promoted his finds in books, in videos, and to religious audiences. He built scale models of what he believed the Ark looked like, based on his interpretations. He believed deeply in what he had seen, and he worked tirelessly until his death in 1999. The story did not end with him.
Talking about Noah's Ark. This guy lives there, where Noah's Ark landed. We're going to have Andrew Jones come on in just a second here.
Another researcher, Andrew Jones, picked up the mantle many years later. Jones had been fascinated by the Ark mystery since he was young. He says he first started thinking about the Durupanar Formation when he was still in middle school. Over time, his curiosity turned into commitment. He moved to Turkey, making it his base so he could continue studying the site more directly. Andrew Jones leads a group called Noah's Ark Scans. With his team, he has carried out modern, non-destructive investigations of the same Durupanar site that Wyatt championed. Rather than relying only on surface observations, Jones's group uses ground-penetrating radar, GPR, conducted by professional specialists. This radar work is powerful. It can see below the surface and image what lies beneath the earth without digging. When the team scanned the formation, their equipment detected something surprising. Inside the mound, between about 8 and 20 feet underground, there were angular shapes and parallel lines. These were not random. To Jones and his team, they looked like the walls or rooms of a structure. The pattern suggested possible internal corridors or chambers.
Imagines those spaces as corridors with cabins.
Right angles and parallel lines, suggesting maybe these are the walls, the support beams for rooms. And in the biblical account, you have 3 individual decks, according to Genesis.
And more than just a blob of rock. Jones pointed out that these shapes match what one might expect if there had been decks inside a ship, even though nobody expects a fully intact vessel at this point. Importantly, the radar team was drawn from outside the Ark Hunter community. The machine operators, from a company called Topa 3D based in Oregon, did not know about the Durupanar site before their work. When they ran the scans, they themselves expressed surprise at the results. These underground patterns did not behave like typical geological debris. Jones's group has also done careful soil and chemical studies. They have gathered soil samples from inside and immediately outside the formation. Early reports show that inside the formation, there is more organic matter, higher potassium, and a different pH compared to the soil outside. Some scientists on the team suggest that these chemical differences could come from decayed wood or other organic materials, like what you might find if something once made of wood had been buried there. At the same time, Jones is cautious. He openly acknowledges that despite these intriguing signals, they have yet to find a fully preserved piece of ancient timber. What they call traces are more like chemical imprints or signs of structure, rather than direct, obvious artifacts. He and his colleagues stress they are not claiming they have unearthed a complete intact ark, and they are careful to talk about possible man-made architecture under the ground based on patterns and hints. Jones also emphasizes the need for further work. He and his team say they hope to do core drilling in the future, taking narrow cylindrical samples deep from the formation to test more directly what is down there. But they stress they will not rush into digging without a solid plan for preserving any fragile remains. They want to balance exploration with protection. This modern research breathes new life into the very questions Wyatt raised decades ago. Where Wyatt used his own intuition, metal detectors, and small sampling, Jones brings more advanced tools, wider scientific expertise, and a longer-term vision. He carries forward the dream, but with more caution, more checks, and a clearer eye on what is actually verifiable. Still, even now, not all experts are persuaded. Many geologists continue to argue that the Durupanar structure is a natural formation, shaped by flowing earth, volcanic processes, or other geological forces. They warn that interpreting radar echoes as rooms or walls is risky without physical excavation. And they remind everyone that without peer-reviewed, published evidence, extraordinary claims must remain under careful scrutiny. Yet for Jones, the journey is as much about asking big questions as it is about finding definitive proof. He seems driven not by the need to prove every detail to everyone, but by a deep fascination with a story that has captured human imagination for centuries. It is the story of a great flood, a wooden vessel, and a hopeful ending. His work does not erase Wyatt's contributions. Instead, it refines them, bringing a new generation of tools and discipline to a mystery that may or may not ever be fully solved. Through Jones, Wyatt's passion and commitment stay alive, burning like a torch and exposing the facts behind the scriptures. With these two, Christianity becomes more than a story of hope and goodness. It becomes living truth. Stay with us to know more about Noah's Ark. Noah's Arks. Scriptures tell of a giant boat built by a man named Noah to protect him and his family from a disastrous flood that wiped the earth. Many believed that the ark was real and was resting beneath the rubble of time and history. Many even have tried to find it. Long before modern tools existed, explorers and travelers told stories about strange shapes and old wooden beams found near the snowy peaks of Turkey and Armenia. These early claims often came from mountain herders, soldiers, or adventurers who said they saw unusual objects after landslides or melting ice. None of their tales could be confirmed, but they created a trail of curiosity that others followed. In the early 1900s, reports about the mountain called Ararat began to spread widely. Some climbers said they saw a dark structure buried in ice, while others described caves filled with wooden beams. Many of these stories came from wartime pilots or soldiers who flew over the region. Some claimed they saw a huge outline under the ice shaped like a ship, but bad weather, war, and limited equipment meant they could never return to prove it. Over time, people realized that some of these stories were mixed with misunderstandings, weather illusions, or simple exaggerations. Still, they kept the mystery alive. Later in the mid-1900s, interest grew again. During the Cold War, a few people believed spy satellites captured images of a boat-like shape on Mount Ararat itself.
These markings on the ground here in the mountains of Ararat, that these are the last remnants of Noah's Ark, kind of shipwrecked, if you like, here on this.
The mountain was steep, full of ice, and extremely difficult to reach. Political tensions also made it dangerous for foreigners. These satellite pictures sparked excitement, but scientists later explained that the shape in the images was likely shadows, rocks, or ice ridges. No one could get close enough to properly investigate, so the claims faded. In the late 1950s, a Turkish captain named İlhan Durupanar noticed an unusual oval shape in aerial photos taken for mapping. This shape was not on the icy peak, but on a softer slope many miles south of the main mountain. The outline looked smooth and boat-like, sitting on a ridge formed by ancient mud flows. Investigators visited the site in the 1960s, but they believed it was just a natural rock formation. They pointed out that the region had been formed by layers of lava, mud, and water over thousands of years. The early survey declared the shape interesting, but not man-made. After those first tests, the site became quiet again. Even so, a few explorers still suspected the shape was worth attention. Among them was Wyatt, whose passion for the story turned the site into one of the most discussed Ark-related locations in the world. He visited the formation repeatedly in the late 1970s and 1980s and gathered items he believed were linked to an ancient wooden ship. His claims attracted worldwide interest, but critics argued that his artifacts were either natural minerals or misinterpreted geological features. His work helped revive attention to the site, yet it remained highly disputed. Meanwhile, other Ark claims began to appear from different mountain regions. Some groups claimed to find wooden chambers high on Ararat's ice cap, but when experts examined the photos, they saw signs of staged setups or misidentified natural ice caves. Geologists reminded the public that ice and rock can form shapes that look like rooms or beams. Over time, these claims fell apart due to lack of supporting evidence, inconsistent pictures, or unreliable testing. Archaeologists stressed repeatedly that finding the Ark would require strict methods, physical samples, peer-reviewed testing, and clear geological reasoning, not dramatic photos or hurried announcements. Another location that gained attention was Mount Kudi, mentioned in some ancient writings. A few researchers argued the Ark might have landed there instead of Ararat. They pointed to ruins and old traditions in the region. However, these theories relied heavily on cultural stories rather than scientific evidence. Without physical findings, these ideas remained possibilities rather than firm discoveries. For decades, the world saw a cycle. Someone announced a discovery, pictures were published, excitement rose briefly, and then researchers examined the evidence and found problems. Sometimes the location was too inaccessible to study. Other times, the clues were weak or turned out to be misunderstandings. Little by little, many people began to believe the Ark, if it ever existed physically, might have decayed completely, been buried too deeply to study, or left no trace at all. This long history is what makes the latest research at the Durupanar site stand out. Unlike earlier claims built mostly on stories, dramatic sightings, or poorly documented photos, the current investigation uses advanced technology and clear scientific methods. The team studying the site today includes specialists in ground-penetrating radar, geological mapping, soil chemistry, and digital imaging. They are not relying on rumors or distant photographs. They are gathering data directly from beneath the surface. One of the biggest differences is that the modern radar scans can see inside the ground without digging. They show repeated patterns, straight edges, and layered zones about 8 to 20 feet below the surface. These formations look organized, not random. Although they do not prove a ship was there, they show something unusual, something that natural erosion alone cannot easily explain. Earlier Ark claims never had this level of subsurface imaging, which is why many researchers view these results as worth serious attention. Another unique factor is the chemical difference between soil taken inside the formation and soil outside. Tests show that the inner soil contains more organic material, differences in potassium, and a shift in acidity. These changes might come from the remains of organic structures long decayed. Other Ark claims rarely offered controlled soil studies like this. Most relied on finding loose fragments without context, making them hard to trust. The new investigation is also different because it avoids quick conclusions. Instead of declaring a discovery immediately, the researchers openly acknowledge that more work is needed. They do not claim they have found a complete Ark, and they highlight the limits of the data. This cautious approach makes their findings more credible compared to past claims, which often jumped to conclusions too quickly. This research stands out because of the combination of technology, local cooperation, and long-term planning. Previous expeditions often lasted just days or weeks due to harsh weather or political restrictions. Today's team is able to stay in the region, work with authorities, and plan core drilling in a controlled scientific way. This increases the chance of gathering solid evidence rather than relying on guesswork or dramatic accounts. Even with all these improvements, scientists are still careful. The patterns in the ground might come from ancient human structures, but they could also be the result of some unusual geological process not yet fully understood. The soil differences may point to decayed wood, or they may reflect older volcanic activity. The truth is still hidden underground, waiting for deeper study. What makes this discovery special is not that it proves the Ark.
Now we are in the right place, Mount Ararat. It is a snow-capped peak. It is in the distance, I can see it now. It is mentioned in the book of Genesis as the place where Noah's Ark came to rest.
Instead, it is the first time in Ark-related research that multiple scientific methods like radar, soil chemistry, structural mapping, and digital analysis all point to something man-made, or at least highly unusual, beneath the ground. After more than a century full of unclear sightings and fragile stories, this is the first investigation with data strong enough to encourage serious scientific interest while staying honest about the uncertainties. In this way, the background of Noah's Ark research is filled with mystery, imagination, and many missteps. But the latest discovery is different because it replaces imagination with technology, replaces dramatic tales with measured data, and replaces rushed claims with steady science. Whether it leads to the final answer or not, it marks a new and more dependable chapter in the long, hopeful search for one of the world's most enduring ancient stories. What does this discovery mean for the world? To believers and skeptics. The discovery of Noah's Ark has hit people in different ways because it touches faith, science, history, and human curiosity all at once. For many Christians, the idea that a structure shaped like Noah's Ark might truly be lying under the earth felt deeply emotional. They saw it as a reminder of a story they had carried in their hearts since childhood. Even though no one was claiming that absolute proof had been reached, the thought that such a thing might be real made the world feel more magical to them. They felt encouraged by the idea that a story often treated as only a lesson or symbol might actually have roots in a real event long ago. To them, this discovery felt like a quiet tap on the shoulder, telling them that ancient stories sometimes hide tiny pieces of truth under layers of time. Scientists approached the situation differently. Their focus stayed on the soil samples, the radar readings, the unusual shapes under the ground, and the possibility that this area once held wooden structures now turned to hardened earth. They were fascinated, but in a careful way. They wanted measurements, clear testing, and more fieldwork. To them, the excitement meant a chance to examine a geological puzzle, study the region's history, and look into a formation that didn't behave like the surrounding rocks. While some scientists admitted that the shape under the ground looked surprisingly similar to what an ancient ship outline might show, others argued that nature itself can form shapes that trick the eye. This disagreement didn't stop the curiosity, though. Instead, it made researchers want to gather more evidence, especially because the formation did not match typical natural patterns found in the area. Scholars viewed it through yet another lens. They cared about the cultural meaning, the long tradition of flood stories across the world, and how this discovery fit into the history of archaeology and religion. Many noted that civilizations, from Mesopotamia to ancient Sumer to early Jewish storytelling, shared tales of a great flood. Noah's Ark was a breeze from the past meant to remind the world that history still repeats itself, making its stories known in surprising places. In the water, buried in a mountain or in a cave, history leaves its seal in different time capsules. Many of them are still to be discovered. Some historians found it interesting that the shape and location lined up with old accounts that mentioned mountains near Ararat. Others pointed out that similar claims had been made before, and many had later been dismissed. So they watched this new discovery with a blend of hope and caution. They wanted to see if this one would survive the test of deeper analysis. The world in general reacted with a mix of excitement and debate. People who had never cared about archaeology suddenly found themselves watching videos, reading articles, and following new tests. Children became amazed at the idea that a story older than their grandparents' grandparents might have left an imprint on the Earth. Adults found themselves imagining how people thousands of years ago built, traveled, and survived. Even those who did not believe in the story at all admitted that the structure was strangely shaped, raising questions worth exploring. But of course, no discovery of this sort comes without controversy. Some skeptics said that the shape was simply a rock formation, molded by centuries of soil movement. Others pointed out that if a massive wooden vessel truly existed in that spot, it would be nearly impossible for its full outline to survive for so many thousands of years. A few argued that earlier claims about the Ark had turned out to be hoaxes or misunderstandings, so this one deserved careful examination before anyone could believe it. There were debates about the age of the soil samples, the accuracy of radar readings, and whether ancient lava flows could form shapes that look artificial. Some raised concerns about over-interpretation, warning that excitement can sometimes cloud logic. On the other side, those supporting the discovery responded patiently. They pointed to the radar scans showing straight lines and compartments under the ground.
Christian researchers now say that they have evidence that there is a chemical difference in the soil here in this shape, and also that they have been able to look beneath it with ground penetrating radar and found voids that they think could be corridors or even cabins.
They mentioned the metallic traces found in the soil that didn't match the natural surroundings. They highlighted the fact that the site's dimensions were close to traditional descriptions. They didn't claim final proof, but insisted that the formation deserved serious research because the evidence was too unusual to ignore. They believed the controversy itself was healthy, because scientific progress often grows out of disagreements that push people to investigate more carefully. In many ways, the discovery created a bridge between belief and inquiry. People who normally never agree on anything suddenly found themselves discussing measurements, ancient writings, geology, and early civilizations together. Even the arguments brought a shared sense of wonder, because they showed that humans still care deeply about understanding where they came from and what stories shaped their ancestors. It reminded the world that mysteries are still hiding in mountains, deserts, forests, and layers of earth, waiting to be uncovered. The meaning of the discovery continues to unfold because the work is ongoing. More studies are happening, more tests are being prepared, and more eyes are watching than ever. What makes this moment unique is not just the shape in the ground or the location that fits an ancient story. It is the combination of new technology, patient fieldwork, repeated testing, and the willingness of experts to examine everything without rushing to conclusions. Whether the structure is truly the remains of Noah's Ark or a very unusual natural formation, it has already changed how people explore history. It has pushed scientists to improve scanning tools, encouraged archaeologists to study regions long overlooked, and inspired scholars to revisit ancient stories with fresh curiosity. In the end, the most factual conclusion is that the discovery is fascinating, but not fully proven. Some details match expectations, while others need more study. There is excitement, but also caution. There is hope, but also patience. The truth is still being uncovered layer by layer, test by test. And that, in itself, makes the story powerful. It reminds the world that history is not settled, that the Earth still keeps secrets, and that sometimes even a simple shape beneath the soil can bring people together in wonder, reflection, and a renewed desire to understand the past. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.